So welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class today. Continuing with 2nd canto, 9th chapter. Today's verse is verse number 36. The final verse on the Chatur Shlok of Bhagavatam. And we're just continuing with the purport. These verses are considered the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, and each verse could be given class on for months and months, if not years. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer respectful obeisances unto the Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and Srila Prabhupada, translator, commentator, and dear most spiritual master. Nasta Praishvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious to the heart is almost destroyed to nil, and thus transcendental loving service unto the Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Text 36. Etāvad eva jijñāsyaṁ tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ jijñāsunātmanaḥ anvaya-vyatirekābhyām vyatirekābhyām syāt sarvatra sarvadā etāvad jijñāsyaṁ tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ anvaya-vyatirekābhyām anvaya-vyatirekābhyām syāt sarvatra sarvadā etāvad jijñāsyaṁ tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ anvaya-vyatirekābhyām syāt sarvatra sarvadā etāvad jijñāsyaṁ tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ anvaya-vyatirekābhyām syāt sarvatra sarvadā. Please chant. Etāvad jijñāsyaṁ tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ anvaya-vyatirekābhyām syāt sarvatra sarvadā anvaya-vyatirekābhyām tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ anvaya-vyatirekābhyām syāt sarvatra sarvadā etāvad jijñāsyaṁ jijñāsyaṁ. Anvaya-vyatirekābhyāṁ syāt sarvatra sarvadā. Anyone else? Etāvad jijñāsyaṁ tattva-jijñāsunātmanaḥ. Syāt sarvatra sarvadā. Etāvad, up to this. Eva, certainly. Jijñāsyam is to be inquired. Tattva, the absolute truth. Jijñāsunā, by the student. Ātmanaḥ, of the self. Anvaya, directly. Vyatirekābhyām, indirectly. Yat, whatever. Syāt, it may be. Sarvatra, in all space and time. Sarvadā, in all circumstances. Translation. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Please repeat. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Listen, we're going to start a little bit. It's a very long purport, and I know other speakers have already read first part of the purport. So we'll start with similarly. Paragraph begins with similarly. Isn't this what you want us to do, Madhuri? Okay. Similarly, and let me see, hold on one sec here. I just wanted to... You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually read the first paragraph. It's kind of short, just to give us a little context. Purport. To unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga, as it is explained in the previous verse, is the ultimate stage of all inquiries, or the highest objective for the inquisitive. Everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways, by karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, raja yoga, bhakti yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is a responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life in all spheres and fields, social, political, economic, cultural, religious, moral, etc., and in their different branches. But here the goal of all such inquiries is explained. Similarly, the liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone, even the women, the Sudras, the forest tribes, or any other living beings born in sinful conditions. te vai vidantyati taranti chadevamayam stri shudrahuna shabara api papa jiva yad bhuta krama parayana silashikshas tiryag jana api kimu shruta dharanaye. From Bhagavatam 2.746. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be so elevated, then what to speak of the highest, who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performers of the service. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. This is confirmed in the Garuda Purana as follows. Kitapakshi mriganam cha harau sanyasta chetasam urdvam eva gatim manye kim punar jnaninam nrinam. Even the worms, the birds, the beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfectional life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. What to speak of the philosophers amongst the human beings? Therefore, there is no need to seek properly qualified candidates for discharging devotional service to the Lord. Let them be either well-behaved or ill-trained. Let them be either learned or fools. Let them be either grossly attached or in the renounced order of life. Let them be liberated souls or desirous of salvation. Let they be inexpert in the discharge of devotional service or expert in the same. All of them can be elevated to the supreme position by discharging devotional service under proper guidance. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:30-32 as follows. Abhichet suracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sarveva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Mami partha vipasritya yepi siu papayonayaha striyo vaishas tata sudras tepi yanti param gatim. Even if a person is fully addicted to all sorts of sinful acts, if he happens to be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord under proper guidance, he is to be considered the most perfect holy man without a doubt. And thus any person whatsoever and whosoever he or she may be, even the fallen woman, the less intelligent laborer, the dull mercantile man, or even a man lower than all these, can attain the highest perfection of life by going back home, back to Godhead, provided he or she takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in all earnestness. This sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfectional stage of life. This sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfectional stage of life. And unless and until such real earnestness is aroused, then there's a difference between cleanliness or uncleanliness, learning or non-learning in the material estimation. Fire is always fire. And thus, if someone touches a fire, knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will act in its own way, without discrimination. The principle is Harir Hariti Papani Dusta Chitar Apismrita. The all-powerful Lord can purify the devotee of all sinful reactions, just as the sun can sterilize all sorts of infections by its powerful rays. Attraction for material enjoyment cannot act upon a pure devotee of the Lord. There are hundreds and thousands of aphorisms in the revealed scriptures. Atmaramas chamunaya. Even the self-realized souls are also attracted by the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Ketchit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana. Simply by hearing and chanting, one becomes a great devotee of Lord Vasudeva. Na chalati bhagavat padara vinda lavani mishardham abhisa vaishnavagya. A person who does not move from the lotus feet of the Lord, even for a moment or a second, is to be considered the greatest of all Vaishnavas. Bhagavat parshadatam prapte mat sevaya pratitam te. The pure devotees are convinced of attaining the association of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, in all continents, in all planets, in all universes, devotional service to the Lord or bhakti yoga is current. And that is the statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam and allied scriptures. Everywhere means in every part of the creation of the Lord. The Lord can be served by all the senses or simply by the mind. The South Indian Brahmana who served the Lord simply on the strength of his mind also factually realized the Lord. Success is guaranteed for a devotee who fully engages in any one of his senses in the mode of devotional service. The Lord can be served by any ingredient, even the most common commodity, a flower, a leaf, a fruit, or a little water, which are available in any part of the universe and without cost. And thus, the Lord is served universally by the universal entities. He can be served simply by hearing. He can be served simply by chanting or reading about his activities. He can be served simply by adoring him and accepting him. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that one can serve. Oh, is that the end there? Okay. So we'll stop the purport there. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Agyantamanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shrabitam Yena Bhutale Shrayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Shvabadantigam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam tam sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sudedevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchokopatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Utitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jayatam Sarutopangor Mama Mandamatergati Matsarva Shvabadam Bojo Radhamara Namohano Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vashdi Gaura Bhaktivinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hari Hari. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. So in this extensive purport, Srila Prabhupada leaves no stone unturned. Prabhupada mentions quite mercifully and very beautifully in this verse how there's only one qualification that we need to perform devotional service. And even the worms, even the birds, even the beasts can become Krishna conscious by the influence of a pure devotee. Prabhupada says even ordinary animals that devotees have in their home, when they're treated transcendentally, they start acting a little bit different. Doesn't mean they jump up and start chanting Hare Krishna. But they'll be benefited and they'll gain a human form of life in their next birth. So the sincere earnestness is the only qualification. Let's read that again, shall we? That is so significant. He says that he talks about everyone addicted is sinful, all kind of sinful acts. And he says, if one can actually attain the highest perfection and go back to home, back to Godhead, provided one takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in all earnestness. He says this sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfectional stage of life. And until such real earnestness is aroused, there's a difference between cleanliness or uncleanliness, learning or non-learning in the material estimation. What does that mean? That means if we have that level of sincere earnestness, nothing else matters, practically speaking. How do we attain that stage of sincere earnestness? And how do we maintain it? That's the question. Devotees should never feel discouraged in the progressive march of their devotional service. The forces of material nature we're trying to overcome are insurmountable. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states that Daivi Hesha Gunmai Mama Maya Dharaya Mamevye Pravadyante Mayametam Tarantite. It's impossible to overcome these modes of material nature. But Krishna says, one who is surrendered unto me, he can easily cross beyond them by Krishna's grace. Param param ya viparam natesham. It says that this whole world, which is compared with an ocean of material miseries and suffering, For a pure devotee of the Lord, by Krishna's mercy, he sucks up that whole ocean and it becomes like the amount of water in a calf's hoof print. How insurmountable is the ocean? And how insignificant is the amount of water in a calf's hoof? We cross over, we don't even think twice about it. So in our practice, we can always find encouragement, because to reach that stage of sincere earnestness, we have to start seeing Krishna in everything. And we can find encouragement in so-called discouraging things. Things happen to us, and it's our mind's reaction to them which cause us to become bewildered and confused, and again take shelter of the material energy and give up our chanting. But we don't need to stay there. In these chapter sloka verses, we have to learn gradually to see Krishna in everything. And this is really the common thread through all these verses as well. Let's see. 5. Text 33. Brahma, it is I. Krishna speaking. Krishna says, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who is existing before the creation, when there is nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. There's nothing but Krishna. Everything is Krishna. Our difficulties that we're going through, they're also Krishna. It's not so easy to remember that a lot of the time. But it's true. All these things are also Krishna in but another form. And we have to go through all these things. Not only we in our fallen condition have to go through all these things, but also Krishna's eternally liberated souls, he puts them through so many difficulties. I mean, look at the difficulties that the Pandavas endured. Being, we can't imagine, a kshatriya being humiliated in such a way and having to be ostracized from their rightful kingdom for so many years. And then during the battle, having to fight against their friends and relatives. But we also have to fight against our friends and relatives. We have to fight against all these sentimental misunderstandings and material attachments that have clouded our consciousness. And we can only do that in the association of devotees. Because within the association of devotees, gradually we learn tolerance, we learn patience, we learn so many things. And one of the things we learn is that Krishna's always with us, that he never leaves us. And he's ever present within every species of life in the form of intelligence, and he's giving us our intelligence. But in the human form of life now, this is our opportunity after millions of lifetimes in this material world to start hearing Krishna and start acting accordingly. Everything begins and ends in our chanting. Devotional service doesn't even begin without the chanting. The chanting is our lifeline to Krishna. And in any fallen condition, it doesn't matter, one can chant. Even if one is breaking all the regulative principles, one can still chant. We should never think that a person is too fallen to be purified by the chanting, and we should always be careful in associating with devotees that we don't think anyone is too fallen, because it's simply a reflection that and it becomes a bar to our own spiritual progress, thinking that we are so fallen we can't be purified. That's small-mindedness. So we have to see how we can get this mood of devotional service flaming and keep that fire roaring. And Krishna, we have to open ourselves to realize Krishna is always approaching us. And he's approaching us in so many ways, trying to encourage us in so many ways. So we have to get past the mind's dictation that there's something separate from Krishna. And it takes a lot of practice for many, many years. But nothing, we have to remember that nothing can deviate the soul from the path of transcendental realization. Nothing can deviate us except our own mind, except, as Srila Prabhupada says, our own causeless unwillingness to make spiritual advancement. Prabhupada says in the Purport how one can perform devotional service in any condition. So the chanting, we can chant anywhere. That's the great benefit of the process that we've been given. And there's no condition of life where we can't chant. Even if we're in the most painful, excruciatingly difficult situation, we can always close our eyes and chant in our mind. And if if we're not conscious enough where we can actually mentally concentrate on the syllables of the Mahamantra, we can just think to chant. Even desiring to chant is incredibly powerful. Even the desire, we may not have the desire to engage in devotional service, but if we have the desire to gain the desire to engage in devotional service, Krishna is so merciful. That's what we're reading in this purport. This is unbelievable what Prabhupada's sharing with us. How anyone in any condition of life can not only become purified, he can be a completely pure devotee of the Lord and return back to Godhead in this lifetime. Prabhupada mentions the story of the South Indian Brahmin who had heard in a Bhagavatam class that one can perform devotional service simply by meditating. And he was a poor Brahmin. He didn't have much external paraphernalia to worship the Lord. But he thought he would try out this process of mentally executing devotional service that he heard in this class. So he closed his eyes, he sat in meditation, and he thought that he was preparing a grand feast for the Lord. And he prepared sweet rice, and he, cooked the rice. He meditated on adding sugar and stirring it. He cooked it for so long. And then when he thought that now it must be ready, I'll offer to the Lord, a doubt raised in his mind, because he thought maybe it's not cool enough still to offer to the Lord. He explained that sweet rice is best chilled. And so when he thought about, in his mind, to test whether the sweet rice was cool enough, in his mind he touched the pot of sweet rice. And immediately he woke up, looked at his finger, and his finger had burned. From his meditation. And it says that Lord Narayan and Lakshmi were watching him, observing him, and they were smiling. And so they decided they would send a Vaikuntha airplane to pick up the Brahmin, and they took him back to Godhead. So we never know, even whatever our fallen condition is in devotional service, we never know who's watching. Prabhupada would sometimes say that, one time he said that Narada Muni had come to, I don't know, was it kirtan or chanting or something. And because I think Prabhupada said something like, he was laughing to see the malechas engaging in devotional service like that. So it's 8:50. These are just some reflections. I think we'll stop here, leave time if anybody has any questions or comments. Yes, Madhiji.
Hare Krishna. As in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that even an insignificant jiva, no matter in which form of life they are, they can achieve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We know that there is another incident in Srimad Bhagavatam, Gajendra Moksha. An elephant, when he was in a crisis, in a trouble, simply he surrendered to Krishna. Though he was in the form of an elephant, he was delivered by the Lord immediately. So this is another example that Lord is so merciful, and devotional practice can be done in any form of a life.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, in that pastime, Gajendra he was a dull elephant. He was, engaging in sporting activities with his other she-elephants and things, and all of a sudden the crocodile grabbed him, started pulling him into the water. And then he remembered, even though he had an elephant form, because of that distressful condition, he remembered his previous life. He was a great devotee in a previous life, was able to offer prayers to the Lord. So, yeah, these are all really important to remember. Madhiji?
I have two reflections. So, earnestness also means sincere and intense conviction in something. And I was thinking that that books really help us to convince ourselves, our minds, in how important it is to chant Hare Krishna and to learn about Krishna. I was just thinking it's a nice way to put it, that I'm just seriously convinced in something. Yeah, and how you can become convinced just through the relationship when you go forward with something. We cannot just imagine it in our mind something about God and become convinced in this way. We have to know, we have to experience. And another point I was thinking, you were saying about that we can chant in any circumstances, whether something bad happens or good things. Sometimes we can't do our service, but we still can chant. And it just reminded me this one situation. His Holiness Kadambakana Maharaj, he got shot many years ago in Vrindaban, and he was telling his realization about he understood with his intelligence that he had to chant because it might be the last moment of his life. But he says that he couldn't even pronounce full name of Krishna. How hard was it? And I was just thinking, sometimes we just take for granted that we can pronounce, we can chant, we can utter this name. And it's very encouraging to hear this kind of stories and appreciate that we can chant. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really important point, that we have so much facility now to engage in devotional service. And we may think that, we don't, but we do. And when Krishna starts taking things away, that's when we realize how much facility we actually have. And, everything can be seen as a blessing from Krishna also. As I mentioned before in class, like sometimes, when we're getting older and the senses aren't as strong as they used to be, memory starts failing us, things like that. So it's kind of easy to have kind of like a cop-out attitude. And to cop out, it's called cop out, like it's like a slang term. It means to kind of give up. And it's real, becomes easier also to kind of fall into depression. But it's a blessing at the same time, because the most amazing thing in this world is we think we're never going to die. And so when we realize our body and our mind is starting to fail us, then we start, we can find these sources of unexpected energy and insight and understanding from within, and whatever difficult situation we're put in, if we accept that as coming from Krishna and immediately take shelter of Krishna, Krishna helps us in so many ways, and we'll get so many wonderful realizations and make rapid spiritual advancement. Thank you for that.
Chanting the name of Lord is, anybody can chant, but it also requires the permission or benediction from the spiritual master, or anybody can chant. Because there was recently an article about a Mataji who is in a hospital. She's in a ICU coma, and she don't remember anyone's name. She forgot everything. She cannot recognize any of the family members. But she does remember only Guru Pranam Mantra and Prabhupada Pranam Mantra.
Nice. Anyone else?
Thank you so much. I just want to say that I have a question, and I really like what you said, a couple of reflections or points, takeaways. Find encouragement in disencouraging situation. That's, it's so easy. That requires some certain mindset, because when we are feeling good, then it's easy to appreciate when things go kind of, smooth, or life is good. But then to say thank you to Krishna when things are really go against what we would like, and to still be grateful even though things might be falling apart and not go. It's to say that and feel the gratitude that takes certain mindset. I like that reminder, really, and it's there so much that this encouragement is there, or it's, yeah. And then, nothing can divide us, only our mind. It's just, it's just, I just see how strong the mind can be in the conditions, and it's the only obstacle, it's our mind. Yeah, and then this is unbelievable what Srila Prabhupada is telling us here. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You're going to like that section. I was thinking when I was reading through, I'm like, I think Bhanabhatta Prabhu is going to like that purport. Prabhupada is just so merciful, and I couldn't understand that one shloka there when he says that even the animals, they can be liberated if they surrender, but they have no abilities to surrender. How we can understand that?
It says the Lord incarnates in every species of life. I don't know. If they're... we don't know the benefit